I'm Umar, and this is Room Secured. This is the studio discussion for the UK security industry, where we bring in across manufacturers, distributors, installers to have more of an open, honest discussion. It's not like a sales pitch, it's not overly scripted. This is completely open, fireside kind of chat vibes. In today's episode, we're joined by guests Carl Spencer, who's from Oprema, and also Brigham Kyle, who's from Videcon. So we're focusing on distributors within the security industry. Before we get into the discussion, I'd like to say a big thank you to our episode sponsor, Seagate. Seagate is one of the leading manufacturers of storage solutions within the security industry. From small-scale installations to enterprise-led security systems, Seagate are at the heart with their hard drives and storage solutions. We appreciate their support in making today's discussion possible. So let's just dive straight into it, okay? So one of the main topics that has been the talk of our industry over the last month or so has been COP, okay? I'm sure you guys have heard, every other day you maybe get installers ringing you up saying, what happened to COP? I know there's been staff have moved around within certain companies, but I don't want to discuss what happened between Hikvision and COP. That's not for us to discuss about. That was, that's their own issues. What I want to discuss is how do you stop something like that happening to a distributor? They had, would you say, all their eggs in one basket?
100%. Yeah.
And a company that was turning over tens of millions of pounds a year, literally overnight went to zero. There's, let's say, you guys probably know more than me. Would you say there was probably 80 or 85% of their business was made up of Hikvision?
Yeah, I don't know the percentages that are involved, and there's always going to be an element of things that we don't know and the facts behind it. But I guess over the period of time, there's been distributors that have been bought out, and for growth reasons. Other disties have been bought out because they're in financial difficulty.
Yeah,
and also some of the manufacturers have chopped and changed the supply routes, for one reason or another over the 30 odd years that I've been in the industry. So I don't think it's actually a new thing, but as the industry has changed, it probably hasn't happened for quite some time. So that's why I think the shock ripple has gone through. Because if you think maybe back 20, 30 years ago, it was happening, people were being bought quite often.
Yes.
MVD Gardeners, CCD, VIS into Norbane.
Yeah.
There was a lot happening there.
Yeah.
Within a consolidated timeline.
That was, you're talking now quite a while ago. It's actually, if you think back, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but the same thing happened to COP under previous management with Dahua. So Dahua's relationship with the previous management sort of like, again, I think it ended overnight, and they were then looking for another manufacturer, and that's when they took on Hike. So would you say it's a common that happened to COP, or like how would a company like Oprema and a company like Videcon protect yourselves? Because you guys are Uniview distributors, you guys are Dahua distributors. There's always issues always arise, but if an issue rolls up, how would you guys protect yourselves against something like this?
I think from Videcon's perspective, and you guys are probably quite similar, we've gone through a few stages over the last few years of diversification. Going back 5-10 years ago, we were a one-trick pony. We had the Concept Pro and we were very successful at it. But over the last few years, we've diversified into the fire market, into intruder, access control, and not just having a single partner where, as COP unfortunately had and found, that can be the life and death of your business model. So with diversification, I think we are protected that if, unfortunately, touch wood, any relationships went sour, we as a business, as a distributor, would be fine and we could pivot and perhaps change manufacturers. I think where COP were slightly unique in this example was, as you mentioned, they've been through this process once before.
Yes.
They were partnered with Dower.
Yes.
That unfortunately fell through. They were able to pivot towards Hikvision, another very popular CCTV product in the market sector. Where else can they go from there? You can only do that so many times before,
before
there's nothing else left to
go
partner
for.
with.
But then, okay. Being a distributor with Hikvision, I was told they weren't allowed to stock another branded CCTV brand. Now, I don't know if that's the same with something that you guys have, like with Dower and Uniview. Do you guys have any other brand names apart from your own?
Yeah, we do. Oprema do. A number of different CCTV manufacturers. I think it's good business practice. The definition of a relationship is to be win-win, isn't it?
Yes.
See, it's got to be give and take. It can't just be one-sided. And I think something that all good businesses or all distributors have to work in line with the manufacturers. So, there's guidelines that the manufacturers want you to do, and there's guidelines that the disties want to do. And somewhere in the middle, you kind of got to squeeze that into one to achieve the joint outcome that everyone's happy with. Are both sides always going to be happy? No, of course not.
Yeah.
You've got to look after your own business as well. So whether, something like that has happened in just
behind the scenes.
Who knows? But and for sure. Normally it's like a disciplinary at work, isn't it? That you don't just go straight into the end result.
That's a very good.
The stages that you go through.
Very good point.
So whatever shots were fired across the bow.
Yes, you wouldn't expect.
Who knows?
You wouldn't expect like the final bullet to just come. The first one, the final one, like you're saying, there would have been a couple of stages that would have got to that. It's also, I think what was a good thing is people who worked at COP pretty quickly found employment in other places. So there's not really many people who I don't think, are still looking for employment, which I think the industry is quite good in that aspect where, other distributors or manufacturers stood up and said, you know what, we've got roles. And you saw, I think literally over the space of 3-4 weeks, people then found new roles. I don't know, does anyone joined in Oprema from COP?
We've got one starting soon, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think in Videcon...
We've got at least 4 with hopefully more on the way.
Oh, right, okay. And that's quite interesting because there was rumours that Videcon was looking at purchasing COP when this sort of took place.
Yes, the rumours are founded on truth, obviously. Videcon weren't the only party to be in the bidding. There was a few others that I won't share. But ultimately we wanted to. There was a unique opportunity in the market to be able to buy one of your major competitors and ultimately save 50-odd people's jobs, which would have been fantastic. And enable us to sort of diversify, have 2 brand names, and eventually sort of conjoin the 2. Unfortunately, it was a bit too far gone, if I'm honest, with COP. There wasn't enough left of the business to buy.
Right.
As you mentioned earlier, with 80-85% of their business already gone.
Yeah.
It was a shell of a company, certainly, since a lot of the staff had already run for the hills as well. So it's a huge shame, but unfortunately, that buyout fell through. But yeah, we were lucky enough that we were able to save and salvage a few people. So there was 3 lads out at the Birmingham branch that we've actually taken on board, and we've actually opened up an office down in Birmingham to house those guys, and another chap down in your neck of the woods, down in South Wales as well, that we brought on, Luke, who's brilliant. He's flying at the minute. So there's an element of pride of being able to look after people and save them, but there's no chance they would have gone without work for too long, to be honest. It's an industry where people buy from people.
Yeah.
So it's a unique opportunity from a distribution perspective that, yes, you could bring on someone from another business any day, but are they loyal to the distributor or are they loyal to the salesperson?
That's the other.
Now they can't be loyal to the distributor, realistically.
Yeah.
So they can. Maybe they'll be loyal to the manufacturer and go to another distributor, but hopefully they'll be loyal to the salespeople.
How do you then convert someone who has primarily purchased Hikvision CCTV products? How do you convert them to something like Uniview? Because you guys don't sell Hikvision, then how do you convert them to Dahua? Because I've found when I'm speaking to installers, some people, they say we only install Hik. Some people say they only install Dahua. Some people now love the Uniview brand. How do you convert them over from, installing one brand and say, right, now we forget that one now. We're going to move over to this one.
Yeah, it's a strange one, really. I sort of paused to give you the hard sell. But realistically, I mean, the process is, you shouldn't forget we're a tech industry, realistically, aren't we? We're tech distributors. And ultimately, our install partners, our customers, are tech installers. They need to know that product, that hardware, like the back of their hand, to be able to install the confidence in their installs and to their customers that they know what they're doing and they can do it reliably and professionally. We need to be able to look our client base in the eye and give them absolute confidence that we're going to look after them whilst they transition from one technology to the next, because it is a complete business model change for them. Absolutely. So as Videcon, we identified a few years ago that it's not necessarily just giving someone a box and saying crack on.
Yeah.
It's supporting them before they've bought the box.
Yeah.
After they've bought it. So we've got pre-sales, post-sales, and everything in between. So it's just installing absolute confidence to the client base, really, and the support approach rather than just a cold-hearted box shifter, essentially, these days.
Do you guys finding something like that as well?
I agree with Brigham's comments that it's a strange one, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, a lot of humans are habitual.
Yeah.
So they stick with what they know. Now, that might not actually be the best product. It might not be the best product for the application, but it's what they know. And in some ways, we could be quite risk averse. So I think when you have that you're, some people are on that curve. Some people are not so risk averse, others more so. But they have to think about their engineering workforce and spare parts and what kits on the van. So there's kind of a lot of other drivers behind it, retraining the workforce. So I think once you understand those, it could even go through to, I'm sure you've had it in your business, where something's happened with the manufacturer that they're normally in bed with, and for whatever reason it's blown up, and neither party see the way forward.
Yeah,
and at that point, they need to make a quick decision whether they continue or whether they explore other opportunities.
Yes.
So often, I think, as we increasingly see now, people are lining up a second product to be in their kit bag, so if
like
things
a backup, backup thing.
Yeah,
I found that with installers. Some installers say, we'll install this brand, but we have a secondary brand that we have as well. Sort of like moves on to another topic I want to bring up is, let's go back.
Can I just go back?
Yeah,
there's one other thing that I thought of, and it's dovetailing what Brigham said, but because it's great that we've secured, the industry has secured people from jobs, right? And nobody wants to see peer groups that you've known for quite some time with families and everything else. But it actually brings up a bigger challenge, I think, is that a lot of the people that are circulating around have done the job for quite some time. So I don't see, from my viewpoint, the younger generation coming in and aspiring to be a BDM for security equipment or an engineer, and obviously, you know, that's what you're helping bring to the market, Umar. But I think that's a wider challenge, because the pool of people that are very knowledgeable, they're all like me. They're getting grey hair and older, and you know, going up and up until I join in
just
the
the lighting, maybe.
join in the coffin or something. But I think it's a broader thing that, you know, at some point, hopefully, younger generations will come into this fantastic industry.
That has
we've
been
got.
you. What you're saying is correct, because if you guys notice, if you look on any forums or you're talking to installation companies, they're always asking, we need some guys, because there's a big shortage of installers in our industry. And the reason for that was, go back about 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't a push for apprenticeships in this industry.
Sure.
We can see now there's quite a big push. You've got companies like Skills for Security, there's Elevation Training, there's Banham Academy, there's quite a few where they're actually taking the apprentices, but we're not going to see that for the next 5, 10 years or so, or even 15 before they want to take a step into, like you're saying, a BDM role, etc. So, like you're saying, there is going to be this shortage for a good number of years yet. How do you feel that? How do you feel that gap?
I think you bob on. I think that there is going to be a few years where there's a skill gap. There are more engineers leaving the industry than there are joining it at the minute, and it's unsustainable. So you're right.
Retirements, like people are. I see
either moving,
retiring,
sort of moving to management roles, or to retiring, or out of industry even.
Yes.
But we haven't got enough coming in at the bottom end to fulfill what's leaving. At some point, I mean, I think we're already in it, to be fair, aren't we? That there is a skill gap. There's not enough good engineers out there. There's a few names that you've mentioned there, a few of the Skills for Security and people like that doing great apprenticeships, and all power to them. I'd recommend them to anyone to try and fill the gap that we're going to have over the next few years.
What we're finding is there's people sidelining from different industries moving into security as well. And you guys as distributors probably see that. Like, previously, electrical companies, electrical contractors, electricians wouldn't really move on to security. But we're finding lots more are saying, look, we're already doing half the job. We get called to run the cables. We get called to, bring the power. And then a security company is coming along and just adding on the last few bits. Why can't we do that? And then you've got your telecoms people who are coming onto it. We did see in the past where you see satellite installers and TV aerial installers who always primarily used to deal with coax. They thought, why can't we come on? Because, Sky's dishes are dying now. Everything's streamed.
Sure.
So I'm seeing more and more people coming from different industries into this industry. And now that the stuff is going more IP, we're seeing more IT guys coming on board as well. But do you guys find where the traditional installers say, oh, these guys are coming into our industry and, the cowboys, do you guys hear that? And they say, why are you guys selling to them?
I think it's always been quite loose. If you take CCTV, with fire there's regulations, with intruder there's regulations, in CCTV there's less. But in turn, you could say life safety, fire, it has a direct impact if something happens.
Yes.
But if a CCTV camera's off,
that's exactly what I say to people when they say, "Oh, we want to do a fire course." I say, you know what to do? Start learning everything else first, because fire, like you said, you're dealing with life. If you install that incorrectly, someone's life could be at risk. Whereas if you install an intruder alarm or a CCTV incorrectly, what's the worst that can happen? The place can be broken into. So it's a very valid point, that. Very valid point.
Absolutely. I think what you said, Umar, about what sparked me is it's IP these days. It's all Cat5. It's essentially IT installs. So inherently, you are going to attract the likes of IT companies and IT installers. Ultimately, once you know how to run a bit of Cat5 and manage IP addresses, all of the technologies are ultimately quite similar. So I think you raise a good point about people coming into the security sector, but equally I'd argue that there are a few also expanding out of the security sector. I think there's a lot of our installers that are doing networking these days, for example, and labouring for external IT companies. So I think it goes both ways, in all fairness.
One thing I want to just touch back on is if we were to go back about, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago, I was finding that distributors would have their own brand, should we say, of products. It normally used to be an OEM from, let's say, a company in the Far East, but it would be branded as, let's say, like, for example, where I used to work at Norbane, they used to have Vista. Vista was their own brand, and it was heavily incentivized for you to sell. You'd know because you were a salesperson, where sell Vista and you would get X amount of percentage commission, whereas selling another brand you wouldn't get as much. Are you guys seeing as well where distributors don't really focus on their own brand as much as they're focusing on the brand names now?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. I think perhaps the thing that's missing. At Oprema, we have our own private label suite of products.
Yeah.
By various manufacturers, but I think sometimes the missing piece is if you buy from a branded manufacturer, they'll deal with the manufacturing, the marketing, the logistics, all of that element. When you have your OEM or private label,
you have to do all that
You
yourself.
have to generate all of that. So when people say OEM private label is more margin rich, they forget the piece that you have to do
Yes.
be push salespeople, I suppose, and push not a pushy sales,
Create the brand name out in the market.
Create the demand, and have to inherently you'd have a smaller sales force, but more knowledgeable on that product, because essentially you're doing the manufacturer rep's job and the disty rep's job in one.
Yeah.
So I think that's a slight misconception in the market, but also I think some people, they don't want to install the well-known brands. They want to be a little bit quirky, and they don't want wide perception in the market and so on and so forth. They want to be a little more boutique, I suppose, like a boutique hotel rather than mainstream. So I think it's the choice in the market, and if there wasn't the demand there, then private label and OEM manufacturers wouldn't be succeeding. Nothing to add?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we're probably two of the last distributors with a decent own brand product left in the market, because it is a difficult sector for all the reasons you've just mentioned. It's very distributor-led, all of the development, all of the marketing and everything, so there are inherently loads of costs behind it. But I suppose it's not the only type of your own brand product you can get. As I see it, there's probably 2 or 3 different levels. There's the off-the-shelf contact Hikvision, Adowa, Uniview, for example, and say, we want these products, but we want to put our own badge on.
Yeah,
you'd be able to do that. And I think there's less of those around these days because, I mean, by design, the manufacturer will nerf those products. They don't want that to overtake their actual brand name, so they don't want any of that damaging their market.
But they normally strip a few features out as well, don't they?
Usually last generation, or it's a clearance model. Ultimately, it's a method of them being able to clear last year's products essentially at a decent price. So that's one method. The way that Videcon do it with, or Concept Pro do it, one of Videcon's partners, is it's all dictated by Videcon. All of the development, literally everything, is done in West Yorkshire, and then the partners over in Korea actually do the coding and the intelligent part. So it truly is a British brand powered by Korean tech. But again, that's just additional costs because all the development's done here. And when you're talking a development team they're brilliant. Our guys, the Concept Pro guys, based out of West Yorkshire. But when you're up against a competitor like Hikvision Tower, Uniview, which have got a tower block of
Can't compete, can you?
R&D budgets of 100 million a year.
Yeah,
it's a difficult market to compete in.
And then also, like nowadays, you can go to an end user, like a domestic customer, and they've heard of things like Hikvision and Dahua and Uniview, because it's I don't know when the switch changed, because go back. People used to relate your Panasonics and your Samsungs and your JVCs, which were consumer products. They'd have them in the security market as well. But now all those brands are gone. When was the last time? I don't think Sony in the market. I know they still do all the chipsets and stuff. Panasonic, I think I've still seen a few cameras and I've seen them on the Aviva trains. JVC, they exited out of the market. Samsung obviously became Hanwha, but a lot of the big leading names that used to be in security, they've gone, haven't they, and been taken over by, let's say, the Far East, or more importantly, China. Whereas before it was Japan. Your Hitachi, Mitsubishi, JVC, Panasonic, they're all Japanese. It's like China just come in and we want this share of this business, and we're going to take it. That's what we've seen.
I don't think private label or own brand needs to be limited to CCTV. It can expand beyond that. I remember at Norbane back in the day, a famous director there said that we sold more camera brackets, and do you remember the 31 tape dispenser like that? That sold more of that than the leading IP manufacturer at the time, and that was just on a little camera bracket that you screwed to the wall and plonked a camera on. So I think it doesn't necessarily correlate to electronic security, but there's lots of accessories and parts that go into a working system that isn't necessarily the product at the very edge. So it's just bringing products to market, a bit like what Brigham said. When you're a distributor, you're talking to installers all the time, aren't you? And you're listening to what they want.
Yeah.
So it's very quick to absorb that and then release that back into perhaps your own brand, because you can come up with the concept or the design yourself.
Just a quick reminder that today's episode is sponsored by Seagate. If you'd like to find out more about Seagate's hard drives and storage solutions, be sure to visit the Seagate website. Another thing is, how do you guys see with the difference with having headquarters in a warehouse and then having branches? Because when we've had people come through onto our courses and we introduce them into different distributors, some of the installers say, "Oh, we like to go into a branch. We like to see the products before we buy them. We want to speak to someone." It's like like the screw fix face-to-face kind of thing. And then you've got the people who don't really care. They're like, we're in the I can finish my work, I can log online, I can see what I need, and I can order it. We've got other distributors, let's say like your ADIs, they're more of a branch network. And I know Videcon, you guys have got a couple of branches, haven't you? You've got...
We've opened up 3 or 4 over the last few years, actually. So, yeah, I think we are kind of going against what generally the market is.
Feels
on
traditionally
branch
used to
systems.
be just basically head office and sales, wasn't it? That was, if we think back, it was always just head office. But now it looks like you guys are spending more on branches.
For all those reasons you just mentioned about having that reach, having emergency stock locally rather than having to same-day deliver it from head office near Leeds to Land's End. It's much easier to get something down there if you've got an office closer, obviously. So we've got emergency stock around the country. It's the ability to tap into different talent pools as well. Opening up branches in other locations means we can bring on board office staff to work in other locations. We're not stuck for just employing around head office, although obviously most of our staff are based around head office. Demonstration facilities as well. I think that's one of the key
Do you have
factors.
them in the branches as well?
That's we're having a push to have them at all the branches. So it's somewhere more local that we can invite our install partners. Touching upon subject from earlier, saying we need to be able to show them a different technology if they're used to a third-party brand. We've got a location that we can bring them and show them, train them, but also then allow them to bring their clients. If they've got a large customer wanting to actually touch and feel the products before they actually buy it, they've got the ability to go somewhere local and get the VIP treatment. And
moving on with Oprema, you guys are like traditional, you've got headquarters, and then you just recently opened a new warehouse, am I right?
Yeah, in Newport,
In Newport.
106,000 square feet. So in an ideal world, we've got the capacity there to bring all of the commercial back office and sales team into there, but it just wouldn't have worked for retention of staff. Mm-hmm. So we decided that we couldn't do that, so we'll have a separate commercial office and separate distribution area. But I think one of the across the years, it's interesting to see different people's take on decentralized or centralized.
Yeah.
And I think there's various arguments depending on whether you have that model or whether you don't. But for sure, I think as we first started the conversation with, people buy from people, for sure. So I think if you can have the centralized model, but you can have, as is the modern world, hybrid working, people working from home, then that can deliver that as well. And they've got the freedom to attend trade shows or various other sort of intimate, smaller events to maintain that customer contact. I suppose the other view, certainly back in the day, was that engineers were going out and they'd be knocking on the door of the trade counter at 8 a.m. They'd have their bacon sarnie, coffee. They'd have a chat with the branch manager or the people that they knew. And before they know it, they're coming out of there 9:30 when they've only been to get a contact or a battery. So, and whether that, in modern efficiencies now and that instant thing where everyone needs everything all the time, maybe that doesn't happen so much. Yeah. But for sure that is driven out of the desire people buy from people.
That's right.
So I think if you can wrap that up in however, whether you adopt decentralized or centralized, if you adopt that thing and customers can still meet or talk to people, I don't really think it matters these days. Although I do like your regional, ideas for the demonstration and look and feel. I think that is important.
Which sectors within the industry are you guys seeing growth, and also, other ones where are declining a bit? So, am I right that both distributors, you do CCTV, you do intruder alarms, door entry, access control, and fire? Do Oprema do fire as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And networking, I suppose.
And that networking has to come a part of that. So within those sectors, which guys are you finding, we're getting growth in this, and the other ones are sort of like easing off a bit? I'd like to get your insights.
I suppose each distributor, their view of that and their answer will probably be unique, because there's other nuances that will affect it. For example, we're doing really well on CCTV at the minute, but that's not necessarily to say that the CCTV market is booming.
Is that because Uniview came out with that brilliant camera?
Exactly that. I think it's more about the brands that we have, and it's not necessarily that the CCTV market is booming. I think there's just a migration from certain brands to others. So it's difficult to say from a whole perspective. Again, another one is access control. Videcon are doing really well in, but since January we've had Paxton, which is the
I noticed that you guys have recently took on Paxton, but Are you not, with taking Pakistan, are you not just taking that business from other distributors as opposed to having your installers who've never done access control say, look, we're now doing Paxton?
I mean, obviously there'll always be a little bit of that, but ultimately our goal is to nurture all of our customers and say, what are you working on? If they're working on an access control job, we've now got the opportunity to funnel them towards a Paxton product, whereas previously we might have funneled them towards something else. So, of course, there'll be an element of that, but our main priority is supporting the customer and pushing them to products that we can ultimately provide them, obviously.
When you look at the mixes, fire is always going to be there, isn't it? As we touched upon earlier, it's a must-have.
Yeah.
And I think we see the mix and fire business has exploded. I think the other three disciplines, access control, intruder, and CCTV, is very, very steady.
Yeah.
The only thing that would affect that is seasonalities, coming into the summer holidays.
Schools and things like that. Yeah,
they've got a
colleges,
limited window for
to,
doing installs. So perhaps more busy periods rather than a specific mix.
But are you also? I see a lot of installers who say, CCTV, we're not making the margins on it, because you get your cowboy installers who are throwing in systems for next to nothing, and then they start looking at other disciplines where you can make, like access control, you can make good margins in that, and fire, there's good margins in that as well. But on CCTV, some people saying we don't even bother quoting for domestics. That's what I hear. Some install, we're not even bothering with domestics.
More and more frequently, I think, these days, definitely. I think, from my perspective, I'd love to see more regulations be introduced in the CCTV market, to be honest, because fire, as we mentioned, it's a have-to-have. In many cases, access control is a have-to-have as well. If you picture the 6-week holidays, as you mentioned, there's a lot of schools having access control installs over the summer break, whereas CCTV, unfortunately, anyone can actually install it. So I would love to see more regulations introduced in and around CCTV to sort of salvage and
I think
protect
we
our
should
customer base.
follow the Irish market, which is that if the company is not PSA licensed, they can't install anything security based on a property. And if they did, the consumer and the company would be liable. And at the same time, you can't go into a distributor and purchase any products unless you're PSA licensed. So I only found this out a couple of years ago when I went over to Dublin, and I was sat with one of the distributors there, and he says there's this licensing scheme within Ireland where you have to be PSA licensed, and they have a shortage of engineers as well. So what they've seen is bigger companies are buying out the smaller installation companies just to take on more engineers, but also have that stronghold. So regulation. And do you ever think it's going to be regulated? CCTV alarms,
I hope so.
access.
Yeah, I do hope so.
Hope so, but there's no push for it. There's no. We've got the NSI, SSAIB, but they're not really a regulation. That's something that you choose to go with. If we were talking about regulation, let's look at like electricians have to be NSEIC, and if you fixing boilers, you've got to be gas safe. You can't touch a boiler unless you're gas safe registered. Mm-hmm. It needs to be something like that where there's a mandatory body. It's mandatory. You need to, have this license before you can go out and install. I can't see anyone pushing for it.
No, I couldn't call that. Yeah.
Even look at even the fire. Even after the tragedy of Grenfell, there's still I read so many things that people are still saying. There's still not the kind of regulation that needs to be there, even after having disasters like that. So regulation, key point, I think.
I'd love to see more of it, but as you say, we individually can't influence that. I think what we can do as a market is each and every one of us push the regulations that we do have, the NSI and things like that, really sell that and get that out into the market so end users begin to ask for it more frequently, and it'll protect us all ultimately, I think.
A couple of other topics I want to touch on. Tech support. Have you guys seen now, you get a bit more pre-sales tech support with, let's say someone has a big project. They come along and says, right, I need to do 150 cameras, 20 doors, etc. Are you guys finding you're spending, the tech guys spending more time on pre-tech or pre-sales kind of project support? And you don't need as much then when it comes down to post-sales, because you guys have advised the company, right, this is what I suggest you do, this is what I recommend you do. So you're tending to see less issues down the line. How's that?
I don't think it's necessarily changed in that way.
Okay.
I think, there's two areas for me. One, I think the pre-sales and the hand in hand with the installer and sometimes the end user is really important. And I think no matter how well you design a system and you dot all the I's and cross all the T's, ultimately, when you hand that job pack through,
you don't know what's going to happen.
Yes, but where I was going with it is it comes back to the original point about the skill level of the people that are implementing it and the communication. And so I think when you talk to our tech support, they're still getting people coming on that don't know what an RJ45 is or haven't got a laptop in the world of IP install. So, it's ranging from everything from that sort of call right up to, manufacturer trained engineering force and project managers and people that have been doing it a long, long time.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be, electricians and other companies from outside the industry coming in and deploying their skills in their area, and they bolt on CCTV that they're not familiar with. So I don't actually think the mix has changed too much in the years. I think with plug and play, that everything that's developed there in some instances is fantastic, isn't it? But then as we embark on almost two directions, one is plug and play and one is more integration and specialist knowledge, I think that might create more of a divide than there is. And almost as we go more plug and play, then essentially we need de-skilled people to put it in that can put it in quickly. So I kind of think we're in a bit of an in-between at the moment with support. That would be my take on things.
Is manufacturing training, you guys finding manufacturing training is helping? Because the manufacturers expect you to know half of the knowledge already. But I find sometimes, when they say free training, we've got free training. I've had people who've been on the HUA course, who've been on Uniview, been on Hikvision courses, just because it said free training. Right, and they said, we went on it, we put 3 engineers. They, like you said, they didn't know what an IP address was. And they sat through a 2-hour course where they didn't understand anything. And then they came to us and says, we want to learn from the basics. We need to know, like you say, how to put on an RJ45. Do you think manufacturer training is oversold a bit too much?
I think it can be, definitely. As Videcon, we offer the full plethora of training courses from entry level to medium to advanced, and we always have done. They are meant to be sort of industry specific. If you've come for CCTV training, we will train you on CCTV in general, with obviously an inherent sort of persuasion to certain brands.
Would you not say distributor training is a bit more sales orientated? Because at the end of the day, you want to sell these people the kit. So, again, I'm only feeding back what people say. They said they've been on
We try and keep it impartial, but Of course, we're going to suggest our products, and when it comes to let me show you how to do this, of course we're going to wheel in products that we sell. We're not going to do third-party brands. So I suppose that's where companies like yourselves come in to be able to be completely independent and train people on anything and everything. I would say these days CCTV in the world of plug and play, that there's less to learn. It's a bit easier than it perhaps once was. But again, then that arises the question of the skill gap, because these younger engineers that have only ever known plug and play, yes, it's all well and good until it doesn't work, and then there's a gap in their knowledge to actually get something up and running again.
You hear people saying, oh, lick and stick, and when with Ajax coming out, I don't know if you guys go onto these forums, or even if you see on LinkedIn when someone posts something about Ajax, you'll get people coming on and say, oh, I'm never going to install Ajax. It's a DIY brand. However, I say to any installer, just try it. Try this Ajax system out. And then they say, you know what? Wow. I'm both of you supply Ajax, don't you?
Yeah.
Have you converted many people from who've said, oh, we'll never install that, to now they're like, they can't get enough of it?
I don't think it's specific to one particular brand. I think we've done it across a lot. I'm a firm believer. If you think of us three here, at some point in time, we all came into the industry, know nothing, did we? Didn't know what a camera was, didn't know what maglock was, didn't know what fire alarm, etc., etc. So you learn. So you can, people coming on the course, just because they don't know what an IP address scheme is, they might be involved in fire, and they might be skilled up to the max.
Correct.
And this desire to have more, or requirement for more multi-skilled engineers. So you might have people that are very, very qualified, but the course that they're on might be out of their comfort zone. So I suppose everyone's got to learn, and whether you're a manufacturer or a disty, it's our job to try and do as much as we can to help them on that journey, just as people did when we first started out, for sure. I think the difference, I suppose, is that you've got, when you have a training course, you're getting a load of people in, 8, 10, 12, 20 people. They've all got different skill levels, haven't they?
Yes.
So you've almost got to start sometimes at ground zero
level,
and alienate half of the room for half an hour while the others catch up.
And the problem you find there is then you'll have people going on the phones while the other people, because they know, that's what one of the biggest distractions, especially in training courses, is phones. People just be on it while you're trying to train them, and it's like you're saying, it's hard to keep that many people in line for a couple of hours. People's attention span now is
tragic,
to say the least.
Yeah.
Marketing wise, as distributors, okay, are you guys still seeing? Still doing trade shows? You still getting a return on investment from doing trade shows, or would you rather say, right, we can stick that money that we were going to do in that trade show, because there are some shows where you can go to, or some open days you go to, and you might only see one person, 2 people. I've spoke to manufacturers where they've done an open day at a distributor's branch, and in 6 hours they saw 2 people. Okay, but if you think about that, that's that days that person spent out, the travel costs, maybe the accommodation costs. Is it now time to start putting a bit more focus onto social media, which I'm not seeing this industry taking a grasp of yet? It's more we're still stuck in the era of, all right, we don't really have the traditional print magazines like we used to have, but still, okay, we'll go and do a trade show, we'll go and do this thing. But I'm finding more on social media.
I think, there's 2 prongs there. So when it comes to the face-to-face, such as the open days and things like that you mentioned, in the extreme example of 2 in an entire day, maybe people have wasted their time. But ultimately, I suppose if you shift your perspective to the alternative is from a rep's perspective, you could drive round and effectively see 3 people in a day, maybe 4, if you're lucky and well organised. Whereas if you can get a trade show or an independent open day and you get in 6, 7, 8 people through the door, it doesn't have to be masses. It's still quite effective. Your reach there is quite strong. And equally on the social media front, we've recently started doing webinars, which was a daunting experience.
How they what's the kind of...
So again, when you picture your reach, I mean, we've varied from maybe 4 or 5 to 15, 20 per webinar. But when you look at that and say, well, that's an hour worth of my time in the office.
Yes.
I can work all the way up until that point, do the hour, work all afternoon then.
Yeah. You're not wasting the whole day,
It's not a waste of a day. I don't have to travel 4 hours there, 4 hours back.
Stuck in motorway.
The reach is well worth... the return is well worth the time it takes and the investment in time.
So do you think you guys would probably focus a bit more on those things?
It's certainly going to grow. Yeah, certainly going to grow. Webinars, I think so far we're still fairly young in that journey, but I do think it's going to stick. And platforms like YouTube as well. I feel like, again, if you can record an hour's podcast, but the reach then is a few thousand people over the next couple of years, it's far better than going out and trying to meet people on an individual basis.
I think I'd second that as well. And if you think about, it's less about reading manuals now, isn't it? And finding something on YouTube and visual stimulation.
Creating videos.
Because of the way different people learn.
Yes.
Some people prefer watching video and can't absorb it in a classroom type environment. So I think the surprising thing, definitely YouTube, but TikTok videos where we're talking about people's attention span. A TikTok video's like that, isn't it? So
I can picture you as a TikToker.
I've yet to embark on that, but thanks for the vote of confidence. So I think the way that you portraying and trying to help people learn is different now. The surprising thing I thought over all the time that we've been doing trade shows, and when IFSEC was huge and double-decker stands and all of that, I think it's changed now. For distribution, I think it's a lot more about the people aspect, and people turn up more to see you and chat to you, and
as opposed to see what you're selling.
I think in a distribution world, apart from own brand and private label, because then all that happens is that you then take them to the manufacturer's stand and you spend some time there with them. So I think, coming back to your original question, I suppose, is there an ROI? For us, without a shadow of doubt. But the interesting metric is, a month after the show, you couldn't say, we've paid for that show there and then. It's all done. We've got a gazillion pounds.
You've got to wait for the full year to see, did it make a difference?
Even in some of the, not the trade show, but some of the other things that we've done in the past, projects and customers have landed 2 and 3 years later. So but we can directly attribute to that
show,
that event that we did, or
had.
that special thing that we did. So it's really hard to say in that financial year, when you've shelled out what you have, has it paid for itself? Probably not. But the long-term thing.
Marketing in general is the same, isn't it? It's difficult to calculate an ROI in any marketing realistically, but you've got to be in it to win it. If you're not, someone else is. And I suppose the forgotten piece is, if you don't do it, what might you have lost? So
I was speaking to a distributor a couple of months ago, and what I found shocking is I'd say 90% of their staff are not on LinkedIn.
Wow.
And that was exactly my thing. And I said, what? And then they said, we've only just taken on a marketing person who is now making some videos for social media. And I was shocked. And then when I was talking with the person, I said, right, I make a lot of videos, but I post them on social media, but you're not going to be able to see them because you're not... The person I was talking to wasn't on any social media, which I think is a good thing in one way, because, times before social media were a lot better. Now you probably you get hooked on it and you're addicted and it's non-stop scrolling. But I personally, I think social media isn't going anywhere, and it's the difference is it's in everyone's pocket. So whereas before, let's say a magazine or a website, you had to, you open up a laptop and see it. Now I can target you directly on your phone just by choosing certain categories. So, male, age 35 to 40.
I wish.
In what kind of sector, in what area, etc. I think that's one of the beauties with social media is the direct marketing that you can do. But one of the other things I wanted to touch on is, are you guys seeing more cloud-based technologies being introduced into the market, and more, installers asking now, they don't want on-prem recorders or on-prem access control systems. They want everything to be done in the cloud. Is that something you guys are coming up against?
We're certainly getting asked for it a lot more now. I think when it comes to cloud, a cloud platform, cloud access, I think that's brilliant in the future. Cloud recording, I mean, fast forward 5-10 years, if the costs come massively down and it becomes much more feasible, then I think it could well be the future. But as of right now, I think cloud recording especially is a particularly complex thing to actually implement, because you've got bandwidth speeds to contend with on each individual site. But then also the cost of that storage up in the cloud is a fortune. If you reference mobile phones, for example, your photos and personal videos might cost you a couple of quid,
iCloud and all that before you know what you're paying.
Month, but you're storing a couple of gigabytes. CCTV recorders are storing multiple terabytes of footage. If you sort of extrapolate the costs of your iPhone storage, it's astronomical, and it kind of is in a certain way. And I know a lot of cloud CCTV manufacturers or people that offer that kind of service reduce what you actually get. It's not 100% recording up in the cloud. It is limited to event-driven storage, which again then I think is just limiting what the end product is for a client. I would much rather duplicate the storage on site, I think, than have a fail-safe in another location. When you all things considered, certainly the cost anyway.
I think a different viewpoint on things could be that whether we were happy renting a video at Blockbuster, their demise when we went to streaming with Netflix. So technology drives us as consumers anyway. And how I'd equate to that is that cloud, I think, brings about a different model for financing your security system, be it, intruder, CCTV, etc., etc. But you no longer have to have one huge capex at the beginning of the project, and that's got to play out on your P&L for 7 years before your life cycle replace it. What cloud does, and through, don't forget, the consumer market where we're subscribing to Strava or Netflix or whatever it is, all of a sudden now you could have a subscription model which is familiar in our psychology that we're adopting at home. So is it a great thing to wrap your mind around? No. But you could have a tiny amount of capex, and then your subscription or OPEX is then driven across the 7 years, and it's a lot easier to budget, because when you have capital expenditure, you don't actually know how long that's going to last until you have to replace. Whereas with an OPEX model, you haven't got any hardware, then you're removing that risk. So I think to some extent, whether we've got the infrastructure or the capability of the product, it's not for me to comment on. But I think actually we could see some end users, particularly if they're American influenced, where the infrastructure and everything is there, they come over and they want this OPEX model, which could denote that we change all the way that we think about deployment.
It's only time will tell. I'm seeing a lot more companies, manufacturers going towards a bit of cloud-based, and it is primarily American-based ones that that have done that. There's one that I'm trying out at the moment because the amount of people who've asked me about Ubiquiti, Unify, their platform, I can't tell you. And I'm thinking, what is this whole rage? So I've just got a couple of products myself just to test out, and I've found that no security distributors stock it. Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the CCTV range? And you do. That's interesting.
It's changed quite a lot, and interestingly, a lot of our enterprise customers use the Ubiquiti for their links.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I suppose it's definitely come from the IT side, where it's a brand, but no different to Cisco and Meraki and brands like that.
Margins, I've heard, like for example, someone sent me a price and says, "Oh, we sell the Ubiquiti," and I looked at the price, the trade price they were giving me, and I looked at the price on Amazon, and it was like £3 difference. Like, how do you make money with? We know anything that goes into the IT sector, it goes into single-digit margins. How do you guys even make any money on that? Is it just an add-on?
It's like some other brands when they do all of the market penetration and marketing and all the logistics side, and your role is just to box shift, then you can work at that. If you're having to do the push sell piece and develop a market, then it's not sustainable, and you have to tech support it and all of the other costs in there. It probably doesn't. But if you're doing things through volume, or in the instance of where it's perhaps, I use the word enabler to us, because we're selling that as the communication method between A and B, but we're hanging lots of other bits and pieces on it because they like the product for what it is. There's other, wireless providers out there, but they're more traditionally in the CCTV market, and they've established themselves in that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of I suppose not everything should be viewed at face value. It's slim margin and stuff like that. So.
Right. Okay.
And for instance, Ubiquiti, they don't have everything's logged through. If you
support tickets, isn't it?
Yeah. So everything's on internet. Some security installers won't be happy with that.
They want to pick up the phone,
of course
and they want to speak to someone and say, "I'm on site, and I need to get this issue." They don't want to start, like you're saying, log a support ticket.
Yeah. So you've got two avenues, haven't you? You've got the more cost-heavy model over here, and you can pick up the phone or go and speak to people or go to their showroom, see their products, etc. And then you've got the stripped-down avenue over here.
I think that you touch on a good thing is the support. I think installers or people in the security industry, they want that support, don't they? They want to be able to pick up a phone if they've got an issue and know that at the end of the line, either distributor or manufacturer are going to be able to get them out of that issue. And I think that's why there was someone made a comment to me. You'd rather pay a few pounds more to a company where you're going to get the support.
In some instances.
In some instances, yeah.
Not everyone shares that view, but at least there's choice, I suppose, for the installers and the end users.
Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having us.
I could talk for another hour about this, but I'm sure we'll get you guys on again. This is only episode 1, so there's many more to come, and I'm sure I'll see you guys on here again. So thank you for taking time out to come on to this. Much appreciated.
Great to be involved in episode 1 as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks, mate.
That's all for this episode on Room Secured. I'd like to say a big thank you to Carl Spencer from Oprema and also Brigham Kyle from Videcon for taking the time out and visiting us to create this first episode. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to follow us on all leading platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, where you'll see future episodes also being published. I'd also once again like to thank our episode sponsor, Seagate, for making this episode possible.